Don't tell me what I can't do.
I'm trying to help you, you idiot.
Have you ever said, "This makes no sense," and someone tells you, "You're just not seeing it right"? Well, how do you know? You gotta know where to look and trust your own eyes. There are clues, even a template. Hello, I'm Lewis, and this is the Red Pill Diary. Come on in and join us. I've switched the lights on for you.
So, hello.
Hey,
I'm going to start this off with a description.
kind of set the stage for us.
Yeah, sorry. So, I'm going to start this off today and give you a picture. It's July 1917. It's in Ypres, Belgium. And there's this green, ugly cloud that's coming over the trenches of the soldiers. And it is blistering their lungs. It's burning their eyes, and it's blistering their skin. It's a sticky substance that just will not come off.
And that's called?
Mustard gas.
Now, second part of this, we're going to fast forward to 1933, February, and we're going to be in Berlin, and it's the Reichstag fire, and it burns, and it sparks the Nazi rule. So
we're talking about a means to an end.
That's where history's darkest bets unravel. So
welcome. Here we are.
I'm Lewis.
And I'm Deborah. This is episode 23.
Yep. We're going to explore how poison and fire fueled victory at any cost. All right, Deb, so set the stage for us.
Well, it's pretty grim, you know. They're betting big because they really want power and they want to move ahead. So we talked a little bit about the Lusitania.
Right, that was last episode.
Right? And how it was sunk. And it was kind of a win-win situation. They didn't care either way.
Oh, for Britain, yeah.
For Britain.
And even the industrialists.
They really wanted either the stuff that was on there or they wanted America in the war. So it was a win for them either way.
Right, so
it was a power move.
Yeah. So I'd say that's a pretty grim thread we started with, and it keeps to going here, and we're going to see it here. And now we've got, at least in the first part, Germany's betting big. You know, they're basically tossing lives on the table too, just like they did over there, the 1200 with Lusitania, right? Hoping for the big win. So in our first episode, Lusitania was Britain's big play.
Right.
Well, at least arguably by the historians. Some people don't necessarily agree with their positions. But so Germany, we have in this episode, they're picking it up. And that's like, it's like Thucydides, watching history play out in front of himself. That's like, we're kind of doing now. We see history play out, and we're talking about it here. Of course, not to the level of Thucydides, but, that Greek historian, he was explaining all these things during that period of time because he was witnessing them.
Because he's witnessing them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing is we're witnessing what's going on today.
Right.
And what's it look like in the past? Is there any similarities?
Well, we're trying to, for us and this Red Pill Diary, their goal is, for us is to say, are there similarities? And we don't want to make up similarities.
No.
But if we look back and say, hey, like we've said before, history rhymes. Well, there's stuff here that kind of seems similar. Well, we're going to see here just real quick that, this thing about mustard gas and how it originated, similar to the things we've seen in the last 4 years, or at least arguably people have been claiming.
Yeah.
And we don't know the full truth necessarily, although it's coming out. But look how long it took to figure all this other stuff, like Lusitania. They still don't have some of the stuff that the Britain has kept under secret for almost 100 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So these people are all long gone. So why is it they're hiding it? Like we said last episode, pride.
That's right.
They don't want people to know because
what they're really up to.
Well, it changes the dynamic of the history that's being taught.
Yeah, they want the rosy glasses when you look at history.
Yeah.
Everything's all shiny and pretty because you're doing it for patriotism and for the good and all that. When a lot of times it's nothing more than greed.
Well, very well, for the people that are fighting the battle, we don't want to diminish them. They went there because they were told to go.
That's right.
But,
and they believe the rhetoric.
well, that's because they had
The
no other
propaganda.
choice.
That's right.
They had no other
That's
choice.
what they're being fed.
They didn't have They didn't have Twitter or
That's right.
Instagram or any social media then to get the words out to them.
Right.
Whether people think it's propaganda or not, you didn't have it. So these people were going to battle and
Believing it.
yeah, absolutely. And so mustard gas. We've got mustard gas now. We've got other things. Well, not now, but back then, and we've got other things now. But so, back in the day when I was a medic, I patched people up. I had to deal with the results of the carnage of plane crashes and wrecks.
Nasty.
But like this description we're talking about here with all these people dying is nothing I would ever. No, nobody wants to encounter that. So now Germany is tossing this mustard gas out there. They're hoping they're going to shift the tide in this battle and they're going to take advantage of it. Well, the sad part, for lack of a better term, is they don't really take advantage of it. They're so caught off guard by the consequence of the gas that they don't move forward. They end up losing any momentum that they arguably could have gained to some extent because of it. Because
the winds changed too.
Well,
and the wind blew back on them.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have any gas mask. They didn't have anything. And if it got on your skin, it was horrible.
Yeah.
So it was really not a good deal at all.
Well, it's just one big experiment.
Yeah, it was.
And they've realized that, hey, nobody had gas masks. And even then, they didn't have the stuff to protect your skin. So all these people were affected. Now, this 1.3 million people, that's affected. Not all of them died. Well, not to just, to minimize people's pain, but not everybody died from the gas. A lot of them did.
Yes, an awful lot of them.
But this guy, his name's Fritz Haber. He's a German chemist. So what do we know about this guy?
Nobel Prize winner in 1918.
Right.
And he made something that would actually help the crops because that was his goal. And he won that Nobel Prize because of it. But then he decided that he was going to keep playing with it. And that's how he discovered the mustard gas.
Yeah. Now he's got a chemical weapon.
Yes.
Like you said, he's got a liquid that it turns to vapor and sticks on you.
That was nasty.
Yeah, and you can't wash it off, or not easily. And just think, if it blisters the outside skin, you breathe it in, it's going to blister the inside.
Yeah, your lungs.
And your eyes, any place where there's that
throat.
Mucosa, place is very sensitive. It's going to, it's nasty.
It is very. So 1,000 people die really quick.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands linger.
Right. You get blind.
Yes. It's a terrible situation.
Ugh. It's
But, this is gain of function.
Yeah. I think, I think you're correct. I think they don't know it yet, but they take something that would have killed off boll weevils, so to speak. I don't know which one attacks
Yeah, I don't
wheat.
know what it was, but yeah.
And you end up turning it into something that affects people.
Deadly. Mm-hmm.
And then now you get this massive experiment, and whether you wanted one or not, and then you learn from it. And now the British and the United States, when it gets involved, and France, they start throwing it back at them.
Yeah. It's almost like a morbid curiosity. They just keep digging into it to find better ways to be more lethal.
Yeah, it's like anything to break it, to get a win.
Yes.
So in this case, it's like World War II and, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They rationalize the end is I want to end the war. And so they say the sacrifice of 30, 40, 50,000 people justifies the end. But to some extent, you end up with an experiment.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Because now you've got data to look at and say, well, what did you learn from that? I'm not saying that was their motivation, but this type of behavior crops up more times than one would think it does.
Yes.
I mean,
it's horrific.
We're going to see this in other episodes coming up. That's just the means and the ends of, using something, testing it, finding out what it does or doesn't do, and then adjusting it and calling it defensive. So now, Haber, he knew what it was. Like you said, gain of function. He had test showed it was going to blister in hours, but he did it anyway, right?
Yeah. And he came home and told his wife, is what the story says, and that she actually was so appalled and so horrified from his noble cause and getting that Nobel Prize and all that to here actually murdering people with this stuff.
Yeah.
And she was just so horrified, she actually committed suicide.
Yeah,
She just could not live with that.
I-
And you know, I get that.
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing to think that you are living with somebody who's doing that.
Yeah, and I believe she tried to convince him to do otherwise, and he just wouldn't do
And
it.
he just wouldn't.
And so she understood. And that's the thing about breaking into people's how they deceive themselves into believing it's just the science. It's like that movie.
Like the movie, yeah.
Like Jason Bourne, that one.
That science lady, she goes, oh, well, I just follow the science. I'm only here for the science.
Right. So but she doesn't really connect the science to the person or
he
people.
was just a number.
Yeah, just one of many.
Yeah.
And so her testing, she's actually live testing these things on people, supposedly volunteers. And we're going to see this happen in the future.
Absolutely.
In future episodes where they get people to test, but they're there for the quote unquote science. It's defensive. Well, at what point does it cross from defensive to offensive?
Yes.
It's like Haber here. He realizes I got something here. I can tweak it a little bit. I've gone from something productive to help people to something destructive that doesn't help people.
That's right.
And
destroys.
And destroys. And that's where you're saying his spouse, of course, decides that, you got 1.3 million, 90,000 dead. That means don't care who's left wheezing. It's pretty willful.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's like he's betting souls, or they are,
Yeah.
using Haber's material for a breakthrough. They want this war to end, and they want to win.
Haber is just all pride. Science just reigns, right?
Yeah, break or bust kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But the war doesn't stop. It drags on.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And you got soldiers and civilians. Some Germans, basically the wind shift. And that's the thing about some of the things we're going to talk about in the future. For a while there, they didn't develop germs or chemicals to some extent they did use them, but the concern was, especially for germs, is that the winds were unpredictable.
Indiscriminate.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
You couldn't predict them. You could say,
couldn't-
well, the wind's going to blow,
control
but you couldn't control it. And with germs and other things, the heat and cold they're affected. And this time
It's
they
all
didn't have,
factors.
right? And they didn't have a lot of knowledge at the time about those types of things like they do now. So they had to find a vector, like you said,
Right.
and they learned that from this.
They really did.
Every time they did something different, they learned, okay, we need something to deliver this.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how that plays out later on as
now.
they start to learn from this.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to ask yourself, where do you draw the line? And we're going to see they don't draw that line very easily.
They don't draw it at
So,
all.
pride's in
sometimes.
their work. He
Yeah.
says he saw as science, like you said earlier about that movie. It's like, you kind of leave ethics in the ditch.
Yeah. They're not even thinking about it. Compassion for people is out the door. They're not even talking about it.
Yeah, it's like defending a lost cause in the courtroom. You just kind of like, it's going to happen. It's burning. You're going to get burned at the end, but there's nothing you could do. You're sitting there going, this is not going to turn out well. And the jury's just they're going to hammer this person, and it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, one thing is that the Geneva Convention did ban it in 1925.
Yeah, but not everybody, it was kind of too late at that point.
And not like you're going to say, it's like not everybody signed it. We didn't.
I don't believe he signed it until later on. I
Yeah,
don't know
a lot
exactly what
later.
they were off the top of my head. We'll find out later. But
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, the whole thing was like death and carnage, and
it's about getting to where they wanted to go. It was that, like you said, it's the means to an end. It's just like going back to February 1933 in Berlin. Hitler's move in the Reichstag
Yep.
was all about what? Coming into power for the Nazis' rise.
right. And he was chancellor at the time, but he didn't have the power.
No, he didn't have the power.
But in walks this guy named Marinus van der Lubbe. Now, let me give you a little background on him. He's a one-eyed guy, blind in one eye. He's a communist, basically a drifter. And he happens to be at the right place at the wrong time for him. And this fire starts. He claims he did it, right? But with the Gestapo and the brown shirts around at the same time, it's pretty convenient that the fire starts, they nab him right away, and then they go out and get 4,000 other people real quick.
Yeah, they just happen to have them in their sights.
Yeah. So
just happened.
Right. It's like in the Lusitania, room 40, they had already broke the code, and we're going to see this in next episode with the code breaking kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a
information leaks.
They had knowledge or wind of stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So they set these things into play so that they could play off of it. So this was just the setup in order for them to get the next step. We're going to see this kind of behavior over and over again.
Over and over.
So he ends up basically, the fire happens. Now, this is the Reichstag building in Berlin.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've not been to Berlin, but I've been to, I've stationed in Germany. But, these old buildings were
beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
ornate. It's massive. It's glass dome. It's a symbol of democracy in 1933 at the time, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, at least, we won't go into the history of, who all the people are involved with all this stuff, this quote unquote democracy. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't anywhere near the stuff that is being prepared down the pike. And all of them saying, we're doing this to avoid the communists. Boy, does that ring.
Yeah.
Everybody's somebody else's puppet. And so part of the lessons here for us, and hopefully people will pick up this as we go through, is that you got to be careful when people keep saying the same types of statements that you see happening 100 years ago.
Yes.
And we'll see this historically going through the Red Scare all the way through even today. I mean, that group of people are basically the boogeyman that everybody calls
man.
It. Well, yeah, but in this case, it's a boogeyman. It's the scary person under your bed that everybody's afraid of.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they keep using that, say, oh, it's this, when in reality, it may not be them, and sometimes it's us.
Sadly.
Sadly.
Yeah.
So here's basically the fire, we get back to the Reichstag. So here's this fire, and it cements Hitler's grip on power.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah, and he basically
runs with it.
He runs with it. So, you got this drifter, he's half blind, he lands in Berlin, and they nab him right away. So he's the perfect straw man. He claims, like I said, he claimed it was solo, but the part about the ends justified the means here is they want to save Germany, right? And crush all these other outsiders from the starvation, et cetera, that's going on, during that period of time. So this is no accident, it's a planned catastrophic event on a symbol that it's like it's the Reichstag fire, and it's probably not the same just because, but it's similar in the sense of the response to it, like 9/11. You take a symbol of whatever, and it elicits a response from people, and it elicits the right response. And so the Reichstag elicited the right response that Hitler wanted.
It brought the people together.
Right. And it brought them together and united against a common foe. And that's what you need if you're going to have people fight. You have to have an enemy to fight, and they've got to make one, whether it be ethnically involved or whether it be just an individual that has an ideology. It's some characteristics that you have to focus on to get people to willingly want to engage in a violent way towards someone else. It's a psychological piece that you have to have.
It really is.
Because nobody's just got, most people aren't sociopaths, thank goodness.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. So, at this time, you've got, there's no hard proof that the Gestapo, back to the Reichstag, that they sparked it. And, but I, recall reading there was some sort of allegedly a tunnel under there that had a door that took to the basement of the Reichstag
building.
The building. And I remember being stationed in Germany, and I worked at a hospital there that was a former SS officers' hospital in Wiesbaden. And they had tunnels all over the whole compound. You literally could go from your barracks all the way to most places in that hospital, if not all of them, through these underground tunnels.
Yeah.
And I never got to see them. The people that worked in supply probably may have seen them, but there were tunnels that went to the Bahnhof, and those tunnels were sealed off and filled with water. I think that's the legend. That I never got to see them, of course.
Yeah.
But it would make sense. It wasn't that far. We were on a hill, but the hospital was located within a residential area, and it had red crosses on the top so they wouldn't be bombed. But back to the tunnels. Those tunnels were there. So you could easily get to the Reichstag, start the fire, get out, and come up on the street, and no one would know.
That's very interesting because the soldiers and the people that had gone over in that Second World War, and they saw, or the first, that is, and they saw the different tunnels and they saw the Autobahn. That spurred growth in America for the same thing.
Well, later on, when they got out of there, I
they
think
did.
Eisenhower started the project. I think I could, somebody will correct us.
Roosevelt,
Somebody will tell
or
us that's
somebody.
not true.
But
But
yes.
I think Eisenhower after the Allied forces saw the Autobahns and they replicated that here with our interstate highways
And the tunnels.
Yeah, we've got tunnels. So the one thing about this is back to Reichstag is that in 1933 they suspend civil rights like speech and press, and then they start arresting people at will, claiming they're trying to destroy democracy.
Yeah.
Now,
Where does that sound like?
Where does that sound like?
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah. So you get into the European
give you a
countries.
hint.
Yeah, like
They're a monarchy.
UK.
Yes.
And you see Germany. You
Yes.
see, you see stuff in there. They don't want anybody on social media. They don't say, you can't say anything that's negative towards the government or political figures.
Right.
Or you can't say anything you don't like about specific ethnic groups. I'm not talking about a hate speech, just saying, hey, I have
we don't like that.
I have a concern.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They knock at
They'll
your door and
go
they basically arrest you. Now,
Yeah.
it may not be the same, arguably, but it smells like
Yes,
it's like
it
that
certainly
old
does.
saying we say, "It walks like a duck."
It smells-
It sounds like a duck. Well, I think I've used that before, but anyway. So here we got, this gives them a pivot. I mean, now they're trading lies for control.
That's right.
So this saving democracy by capturing people and putting them in prison camps, or worse, is justified because it's saving democracy. The end
Justifies the
is
means.
saving democracy. The means is we capture everybody we believe is not saving democracy. Where have we seen that before?
Oh, yes.
So, that's the whole point of this. I've said this probably ad nauseum, is that the issue becomes, you see this happening in other places, other times, and in other areas or countries or whatever, and trying to make that connection back and say, well, where have I seen this before?
Yeah. We have to pay attention to what's going on around us.
Oh, all the time. But the thing is, the Gestapo knew this guy didn't do it.
Oh, yes.
And the people that were getting power knew that this van der Lubbe didn't start this fire. They did.
Yeah.
And so that was to get power. And now with power, they get control. And then the goal then is to get what they wanted with that power. And we know historically what happens.
That's right.
The danger here for us is to forget what happened in the past.
Yeah. We can't forget.
No, because we see things being repeated.
That's right.
Or at least they seem to be repeated.
Very similar.
Well, yeah.
We see the similarities.
And we should.
Yes.
But the problem is most people don't pay attention to the history because they're not taught anymore. And so they don't talk about it. Or they say, oh, it's all conspiracy theories. Well, maybe it is.
Well, you know who made that term up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The three-letter agency made that.
Agency, Search of the Sea.
And guess what happens?
Yeah.
We're probably going to find out that wasn't a conspiracy theory at all.
all.
And it's like a lot of these things, they keep saying conspiracy theory. That's just a way to minimize or marginalize people that want to have a discussion about what they see. Well, who says you can't be wrong?
Yeah.
You're not asking. You just say, can we have a dialogue about why I think relates? Instead of saying, oh, you're just crazy. You're just and quote, whatever, put a name on it. And then, so therefore I don't have to engage in you at all.
It shuts you down.
Well, yeah, not just personally, but globally as a whole group. And then say, well, you're just crazy people. You just want to cause trouble. You're trying to take away democracy. Let's lock you guys up. That's what happened here.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're going long on that piece. So what's up next? What do you think? What things?
We're going to be talking about Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, some more of this.
manipulation for
Well,
gain.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about, similarity between
Yes.
this and the Lusitania. So we're going to
Yes.
keep going back and forth with these into
And
these,
tying them together.
tie them together in this thread. Is that way people will start to say, And I would encourage people, pick up some of these history books and read about them. Even if you don't necessarily agree with their position, you say, well, that's kind of conspiratorial. Well, maybe it is.
Yeah, maybe it is.
It does make good reading, though.
Yes, it does. So until next time, we're
Well,
going to keep the lights on.
We're
for
going to
you.
leave the lights on for you. Well, we filled those pages. If you have comments, suggestions, share them. The more input, the more likely a better outcome. I'm moving forward because backwards is not an option. I've turned the lights on here, and I'll be leaving it that way. Join me next time on The Red Pill Diary.